Commencing launch in 3,
We're
2,
live.
1. Hi, I'm Jenny Jarzabski, and I will be your captain this evening for our launch into Starfinder. I work on Starfinder Adventures, both as a longtime freelance author for Paizo, as well as a developer working on adventure paths, and at one point, Starfinder Society. Starfinder is, of course, my job, but it is also one of my big-time passions, so I'm really excited to be here talking about it, talking about all the cool books we have coming out and that we already have out for you. But first, let me introduce you to the rest of the crew for today. Let's go to Thirsty, who has a fancy new title, actually. Thirsty. You're muted. We're getting no sound. Cries from the drift. Oh no. Are we still standing by? Please stand by. Technical
Did I break it?
difficulties.
Am I back? Hello?
This is great foreshadowing. You're back. You're back. Yep, you're here.
That's
Is this the drift crisis?
space raccoons in the works, everybody. They just get in there, tear everything up. Hi, I'm Thurston Hillman, or Thirsty, as some of you may know me. I am the what is it? It's fancy. Managing creative director of Starfinder. And I have been involved with Starfinder since the beginning days, back in Starfinder Society year 1. Woo! And then I went on to be a digital developer, and now I am doing this thing and helping out with these amazing, talented people as they build you the awesome worlds of Starfinder.
Amazing. Thank you. Next, let's go to Ianara.
Hello, I'm Ianara Natividad. I am a senior editor, so I get to read all the fantastic things these folks come up with and make sure they're very nice, and that's about it. I'm going to be your somewhat of the beginner perspective here for the panel, mainly because I've read a lot of Starfinder. I just haven't had the chance to play as much as I want to, so looking forward to it.
Yet. And we're definitely happy to have you. And last but not least, Joe, please introduce yourself, please.
Howdy, I'm Joe Pasini, Starfinder lead designer. I work on the hardcover rulebooks, primarily with John Compton, senior developer. And I'm excited to talk about what Starfinder is and how you can check it out.
Great, thank you. So, for those of you, if you are just getting into Starfinder, I'm sure most of you here probably have played before, but you may have friends or you're trying to bring a gaming group in. So we're just going to kind of do like a quick overview and just get excited, talk about some of the products we have available already and some that are coming out. So the first we have is our beginner box. This is kind of similar in concept to the Pathfinder beginner box in that it provides you all the tools like beginning, kind of like intro rules, blank character sheets, like a pre-gen kind of situation, a pre-made adventure, maps, tokens, or pawns, so that you can just start a game with people who even people who aren't familiar with tabletop role-playing games. It's a really great way to get people started. It's a great thing to run as a demo for friends. I was listening to the Pathfinder panel, and they were sharing stories of running for family. Like I think we all have those stories. I ran this for my parents one time. It was pretty funny. Joe, did you have anything else you wanted to add to the beginner box?
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot. It also comes with dice, so you literally do get everything you need. It has little player aids that you might find in like a more standard board game. There's a solo adventure in there in case, if I were buying that to play with my friends, I would probably want to play with it myself first, and the solo adventure lets you do that. And again, like if you might be new to start to role-playing games in general, that helps introduce sort of the basic rules. The rule set in the beginner box is a simplified rule set, so you don't have to learn everything in the core rulebook to start playing. And the pre-generated characters that Jenny talked about come with, they're like a little fold-out thing. And in the margins, it gives you the basics of the rules of the game too, so that you always have handy reference. You can just sit down and start playing. You just need one person to take on the role of the game master, who's going to be running all the non-player characters. like space goblins, and you might have seen in that art there a robot dragon, which was a new creature we created just for this beginner box. Spoilers on when it shows up. There's also this box takes you from first level to fourth level, so you can continue the adventure that comes in it is pretty short, just to get you going and teach you things one step at a time, like combat and social encounters. And there may or may not be a trap. I won't say anything to that, except I just did, I guess. There's also some setting information about Starfinder, like the main setting of the galaxy is sort of a solar system called the Pact Worlds. So there's all sorts of really great intro stuff in there where you can just get started playing right now. And if you get into it, if you maybe try the pre-generated characters out and sit down and play and have fun, there's still an option. Like Jenny said, there's blank character sheets, and you can make your own out of 6 different species, which are different aliens you can play: humans, bugs, lizards, androids, telepathic antennaed aliens, all sorts of cool stuff. Different classes, which are sort of your specialty, and then themes, which are like your background. Maybe you're an icon, maybe you're an intergalactic celebrity, or maybe you're a mercenary, or just a spacefarer that likes to explore new worlds. So there's just all kinds of stuff to check out just in that one box. That we made it on purpose to make it a good intro to the game and also role-playing games in general. So hopefully it all worked for you if that's what you're after.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So, if you want to play, but maybe you can't, you don't have a group, you don't even have a few like parents or friends or kids who are willing to sit down for a few hours, that's where Starfinder Alexa comes in. Also, for those of you in chat that are fans of AI computer voices, you can play Starfinder with Alexa. It's really cool. You can just like call her up and say, hey, I want to play Starfinder. But it's not just Alexa. In fact, most of the adventure isn't really Alexa at all. She just handles the prompts. We have Laura Bailey, Nathan Fillion, like people that were in like every video game ever and on Firefly, voice acting this for us. It's a really fun adventure that's meant to be played solo, like you playing with Alexa. You could also play it in the car with like other commuters, with kids, with a partner or a friend. And just kind of like talk about what you do together. Like that's how I played it, was with a friend, just going through the prompts and like, oh, which one should we do? It was a lot of fun, actually. So definitely check that out. Thirsty, I think you might have something to add.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with most of that for Alexa. One thing I'm gonna like for those of you who are here from the Pathfinder panel and have stuck around because you haven't closed the Twitch window yet, let me start by saying, hey everyone, this is the Starfinder role playing game, which is a science fantasy role playing game set in the far future of Pathfinder. Just in case you didn't know that little tidbit, as we've already dived right into the sort of how to get into Starfinder. Well, what is Starfinder? Starfinder, is this sort of science fantasy future. It uses a different rule set based on sort of that first edition Pathfinder with a lot of iterations and changes to it. So for those of you who are familiar with that edition, this is kind of a little slice of home. But as for Alexa, Jenny, you really hit the nail on the head. Again, something you can play at home. You can just sort of talk through it. Has some amazing voice talent on it as well. It also brings our Dead Son's adventure path, which we'll be talking a little bit more about later on. But you'll be able to go through that adventure path. So say you don't have 3-4 friends you need who can all get that scheduled together. This is a story you can enjoy through Alexa as well. And you can find out all about that on paizo.com/Starfinder on Alexa. Bam!
Yes, thank you. Well, with that glowing endorsement of Starfinder Alexa, but also a little intro to the setting itself, which, oh gosh, like I can't believe I didn't say that. We should get into really what the best tool that you could possibly have for playing Starfinder is, which is the core rulebook. We have this wonderful, I believe it is a 528 page, mini page core rulebook with really cool art in it. Really awesome. Everything you need to play our game. We have our core rules, we have our classes, starships, vehicles, everything about space travel. But you don't have to take it from me because we actually have our game's lead designer. So Joe, I'm gonna let you let you do your thing.
Yeah, sure. So if you're coming from the beginner box, you'll see kind of an expansion of everything that's in there. You get another species to pick from, another class that you can pick from. You get tons more feats, which are special abilities that you get to pick from as you level up your character. New things you can do, tons and tons of spells and technological items, magic items, and hybrid items, which are both augmentations where you can install stuff into yourself to make yourself more powerful, or just weirder. Starfinder can get weird, and that's one of the things a lot of us love about it. And it also lets you tell modern stories, which is cool, but that's kind of beside the point. I just like to say that when I get the chance. There's also the reason that book is so big, it can be intimidating, right? Like, oh, I want to play Starfinder, I have to read 500 pages? No. There's a big chunk of setting information in there. If you're interested in the Starfinder setting, which we find that about a third of people use the setting kind of as we present it, another third sort of take it and modify it, and then another third just like to come up with their own stuff, which we can talk about a little later and on other panels. But there's a lot of setting information about the Pact Worlds, which is the solar system that Starfinder is an entire galaxy, so there's a lot that's there, and we talk about a lot of it. But the Pact Worlds is a solar system not too unlike our own, except that there's world ships and other weird stuff going on, and a giant space station called Absalom Station that's the center of that solar system. And you'll find a lot of our adventures and things kind of key off of that. The core rulebook also has, as Jenny said, starships. One of the conceits of Starfinder is that you are an adventuring party, but you have your own starship. So this lets you build your own starship, kit it out however you want with weapons and different expansion bays. You can have a tech bay or a workshop, or I'm trying to remember what's in the core rulebook specifically versus the many ways we've expanded it in various other books. But there's also a starship combat system, so you can have tactical combat on a hex grid. There's a lot in there, but the rules themselves don't take up a fraction of that footprint, and the rest is just lots and lots of character options for you and lots of setting information for you to kind of take and run with however you want. And again, like, some people have time to sort of to come together as a group and come up with all kinds of wacky science fantasy stuff, but we've done a lot of that to work for you. So if you want, you can just let us shoulder that burden, and we're happy to write all sorts of weird things down and send them out to you.
Trust me, we have all sorts of weird things. Oh, go on, Thirsty.
I was going to say, Joe, my good friend, I've pulled up the smaller version of the core rulebook. You'll see it here.
Oh.
This is our pocket edition. For those of you who maybe like something a little bit more mobile friendly on the go. I was taking a look myself to see what expansion bays there were. Something like, the Arcane Laboratory. That sounds very science fantasy. Or perhaps a synthesis bay where you can craft stuff. Or perhaps you are a coward and you install escape pods on your ship. Well, we've got you covered in this book.
Thank you so much, Thirsty. And please do that voice for the rest of this panel.
Yes,
and
thank
beyond.
you.
I beg of you.
You will regret that. It's kind of like Bane, but I don't know why. All right.
Ianara, earlier you mentioned that you're kind of coming to this panel from, you're not a beginner, but like someone who hasn't played a ton. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, what's exciting in the core rulebook, like starships, like actually making the character, or...
Oh yeah, I love the character building. There's so many species, there's so many options. The classes play a lot different from what I've experienced in something like Pathfinder, but still familiar, and the rules are at least similar. So it's very easy for me to come up with these combinations of characters, with whether it's a species from core rulebook or maybe somewhere else, going on with a class that I can't really equate to my previous gaming experience, and just thinking of how to fit them in this world that you can honestly create anything. It's very sandboxy in a way, the way I think about characters being made in the Starfinder universe, but it's also very fun for that very precise reason. It's just, getting the opportunity to actually put them in a game. Because I think the last character I did was for a one-shot, and it was a Yasakai wrestler, and that was just, the concept was crazy, but it fits because it's Starfinder. So
yeah, you can make pretty much anything work in Starfinder. Any wild concept you have, you can make it work. Trust me. That's the beauty of the game.
Oh,
For
look,
sure.
I found
we got a
another
special
book,
edition.
friends. This is a limited
Ooh.
edition version of our core rulebook in lovely faux blue leather. Ah, look at that! I have three versions of this core rulebook here. Look at them all.
Wow.
Wow.
But yes, yeah.
You really found
you
those
too
Wow,
can enjoy
call
Starfinder
now.
books.
1-800
Yeah,
buy Starfinder.
1-800. But for real,
Ianara made a really great
get
point
the
about.
pocket one. It's great.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we have a
Ianara made a
plethora.
great point about classes. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
go
go
for
ahead.
it, Joe.
I think I'm on a bit of a delay, so I keep interrupting you, my friends. The classes really aren't like SpaceX, like where you take, not SpaceX company in any way, but they're not like, we don't have really like, okay, space fighter might be the soldier. I'll give you that one, but we have things like the Solarian, who is dealing with gravitonic and solar energy, and you have the mechanic, who's tinkering with things. You have the technomancer, who's weaving technology and magic together. All sorts of really cool classes, which again are your sort of specialty that don't necessarily have an analog. So I just wanted to underline Ianara's point. It was really good there about getting to do sort of new things that are thematic to science fantasy in particular, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. I think another cool point about customization in Starfinder is not only do you make the characters, but you actually get to make your starship too. There are certainly sample starships that are already provided for you, like for your GM to, hey, okay, you can start with this starship, this rental, or these are some combatants you could fight against in space. But the group will be able to actually customize and pick options on their starship from the type of shields, like how much they invest in shields versus weapons, what types of weapons they equip, if they care more about, scanning computers versus like thrusters that go really fast. So I think it is that those are really good points about the characters, but even your ship gets to be just whatever you want. Like you could make the Firefly, or Serenity's the Firefly. You can make Serenity. You can make, you could make like a Star Trek type ship. You could do pretty much whatever you want. There's a lot of tools. So I really think if you wanted to just game with the core rulebook, you could probably get quite a few years of enjoyment off of it. Obviously, we want you to check out our other stuff too, but it is a really good investment if you don't already have it. All right. So you've got the core rulebook. You've tried Alexa Starfinder, maybe you've tried the beginner box. But what is the next step if you've got some people together and you're ready to run a campaign? And the next step, of course, are our pre-written adventures. As Joe was saying earlier, our adventure, so we have kind of three types of like Starfinder players and GMs. We have the custom like homebrew people who use our game system, but they want to create all the setting and all the adventure themselves, which is super awesome. Y'all are creative and great. I love to hear about people's characters and campaigns. Absolutely. We also have people that do sort of a hybrid, and then there's people that just use our setting and would rather not spend extra time after they're working and stressed to like write their own magnum opus of an adventure. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we kind of did it for you. We have some really awesome stuff. Junker's Delight, Thirsty was just showing, is one. I believe Ianara worked on this one, correct? On
I
Junker's
did.
Delight editing? Yeah. Would you want
Yes.
to tell us about that at all?
I have to be careful not to spoil anything, but I really enjoyed the reading it as someone that might run a game, for example, more so than anything. It's very friendly as far as the structure. It's what I would expect for a beginner adventure because it's levels 1 to 4, I believe, is the level range. So
That's right.
it gets players really started on picking up, if they're new, picking up on their classes, picking up on how the system works. But it's also engaging because it does do what a beginner adventure should do. It makes them kind of interact with characters, but it also adds in problem solving with how are you going to leverage how you're interacting with this character to, kind of fulfill this quest of getting these things. However you're going to approach that, it can vary depending on your party composition. But it's also, it gives enough of a taste of the combat and how I think at times kind of very Starfinder-y combat can be with the enemies that you fight. and I don't want to get too much into. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm very bad at that. But pretty much that, where it's the enemies kind of differ within the adventure, and I think that goes to show how kind of expansive Starfinder setting can be, and even within just one adventure. Which is this takes place on Akaton. Sorry, gosh, that's why it's called Junkers of Light. There's a bunch of junk. It's really cool. Check it out.
There's a full page that's our iconics eating nachos together. A full page art piece.
That is
This book is great. Great. I'll just add it to the pile here. Hold it up at the end so you can see all the cool things you can buy.
Thank you for that.
This adventure was designed where all you need is the core rulebook, right? So that you you can move from that to Drift Crisis. We'll talk about that soon. All you need is the core rulebook for this, and there's even a bunch of stuff in the adventure that points you to the core rulebook and says, "Hey, if this is your first time encountering this kind of thing, go check it out on this page." And it's really meant to be a companion piece with the core rulebook. And it still does what a lot of our adventures do, which is expand on the options and the cool things that are specific to that adventure that you might find, like aliens or an archetype, which again it explains what that is and where to find it in the core book. So it's really handy.
A lot of
it's a
sidebars.
Perfect next step. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I flipped through that one right after it came. We finished with dev on that one, and I just remember there's some really cool art in there too. Not just the nachos, like there's all kinds of cool junk stuff. So definitely check that out. Now we had an early slide kind of trying to push its way in, and that's fine because it's time for us to talk about the Drift Crisis, I think. Which is sort of the buzz in Starfinder right now. It is our ongoing campaign setting event. The Drift, which is, of course, our faster than light travel, kind of our hyperspace. It is actually like this other plane that starships can just sort of, shunt themselves into and use to travel great distances very quickly. The Drift is broken in the Drift Crisis. One day, all of a sudden, all these ships are just going about their business, and they are just spat out of the drift and into all kinds of strange places. Like, I don't know, maybe home, maybe the plane of fire, or maybe Abaddon or something. Not the best.
How about just hell? How about you just end up in hell?
Just hell. Just hell. I mean, you could get lucky and you could end up at brunch with Desna. But anyway, you never know what's going to happen with the Drift Crisis. It opens up so many possibilities for adventure. There's also a ton of new playable options. It opens up things like using other types of Starship engines and more extraplanar travel. So let's talk about that. It brings a lot of adventures with it, but we have a whole book that is meant to be your source book for how to add the Drift Crisis into your Starfinder campaign or build a campaign, like a storyline around the Drift Crisis. Joe, did you want to jump in and talk about that some more?
Yeah, I got to work on this book with John Compton, and it was a lot of fun. It's the first kind of big event we're doing like this in Starfinder. So speaking of launching into Starfinder, if you really are picking now to get into it, it's a great time because you'll have been there when this happened, right? And the idea is that this will have ramifications. This event will have ramifications that go forward in the Starfinder canon. So things that result from this giant event will show up later and cause, all sorts of impacts in the game. And the other thing is, if you check it out and you're not that interested, it can just be a background event. You can ignore it entirely. We did want to be cognizant of the fact that not everyone wants to jump on board on a specific kind of event. But as Jenny pointed out, this affects the entire galaxy because up till now, people could travel pretty freely, with some risk and some time to anywhere in the galaxy they want. But now it's dangerous. You might get ejected like a bunch of people did. Random pieces of different planes are getting thrown around into other planes. It's a bad scene. The hardcover is kind of the keystone of the whole event because it explains. It kind of lays out the status quo of the drift, like what it was like before, and then it lays out a bunch of possible causes of the drift crisis because we do have a canon cause in mind, and we tell you in the book with under a spoiler tag, the one that we plan to move forward with. But There's all kinds of different reasons that this could be happening. That we give you a whole table of rumors if you want to tease your players and tell them, just a little bit, like maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And like Jenny said, there's a lot of player options in this book, because that's always important in these books, that we give you cool new stuff related to the event that's going on. A big section of this book is 20 adventure seeds, which are these sort of mini outlines for adventures that you can have that have to do with all the different kinds of impacts the drift crisis is having. One of my favorites is kind of like tangential to the whole event. Like, you're not solving the drift crisis in any way, but there's a sort of greedy corporation that has just built this amazing luxury starship, and they're like, drift crisis, that's no big deal. We'll be fine. We'll launch anyway and go into the drift. And then, of course, everything goes wildly wrong. And if you choose to play that adventure, then you will have a lot of fun dealing with the aftermath. There's also a couple adventure seeds that explore the sort of Chaos and Absalom Station, that central station at the center of the Pact Worlds, which is kind of at the center of the galaxy in some ways, because drift travel there has not changed, and it's actually one of the most reliable places to get with drift travel. So there's a lot of people, there's an influx of people from all over the galaxy, and also a lot of people stranded there. So there's just, and the list goes on and on. There's my favorite seed I can't tell you about because it would spoil what it is, but I'll just leave that there. But there's also, what was I going to say? There's one other thing. Yeah, so just that the seeds also have player options, that you don't need to be playing that adventure to use that player option, but it's just thematically related. So there's just a ton of stuff for both game masters and for players to check out the Drift Crisis and even lay the foundations for other adventures that we're going to talk about next, I think, or soon in this panel.
Yeah, absolutely. We are about to talk. We have a lot more. We have a lot more Drift Crisis adventures, but even our friends, the Skittermanders, were affected by the Drift Crisis, and we have another adventure coming up, which is a fun one because it's free. We have every year a free RPG Day adventure that we send out. People can run. We encourage them to run at their local gaming stores if that is feasible for your area and your health, or to run online events, or just kind of pick it up and keep it for later. But if you look at this delightful art, we have yet another in the Skitter installment, Skitter Warp. I love the little Doshko that guy has. It's so adorable. I can't get over it. I'm kind of mesmerized by it. So yeah, Thirsty, did you have any more specifics you wanted to talk about our Skitter Warp adventure?
Yeah, so Skitterwarp is done by my predecessor in the management chair, Jason Keeley, who wrote this and has written several of the past the Skitter free RPG Day products, and this continues on the trend of our intrepid band of 4 Skittermanders, except this time there's a twist. So with the Drift Crisis, cosmic storms have sort of engulfed different areas and changed, peaceful worlds into maybe not peaceful. And as we'll kind of get into as we get into the Drift Crisis adventure paths, one thing that's happened is there have been changes all over the place, and one of them has impacted one of our 4 Skitter friends. And so, without going too much into too much into spoiler territory here, this free RPG Day may shake up the party composition of our 4 Skitter Mander party, and maybe bring in someone who's been at the Skittermander side the whole time but hasn't got in on the action themselves. Well, that's going to change. It's a really fun adventure that you can play with your friends at your local game store for free RPG Day. So I believe it's available online for free. You can go pick that up off Paizo.com, Skitter Warp, and then all of the other Skitter Crash, all the Skitter adventures are there for our free RPG Day offerings. I just had like a complete brain fart on them. I had them written down and I have 8 windows open. But let me tell you, Skitter Shot, that was the and then Skitter Home and Skitter Warp, and we have all the Skitters really. But and Skitter Warp is out and available, I believe right now. Yeah, so go check that out.
Woohoo! Yeah, so with that, we can get back into our Drift Crisis adventures, our tie-ins. or really not so much our tie-in as kind of our big AP meant to celebrate and be the one of our big official tellings of the Drift Crisis story, or one of the Drift Crisis stories. That's actually important to say. So first we have our prequel, which is Before the Storm. This is a one-shot prequel to the Drift Crashers AP that you've probably heard a lot about. We've been talking a lot about it. It's really exciting. Before the Storm is a short adventure that's just designed to get your players hyped and get them ready for this AP.
Very much is. It was also written by Jason Tondro, one of our former developers, the developer on the Drift Crashers Adventure Path. I worked with Jason when I was in the sort of digital one-shots environment, and we decided it would be really cool for us to have a prequel adventure. So one of the things that works really nice with Before the Storm is it can be kind of the springboard into any Drift Crisis adventure. So if you are interested in playing a Drift Crisis game and you just want to bring some friends together, try out one night of Starfinder, see if they like it, and then maybe do this whole Drift Crisis thing, you can do it with Before the Storm. This adventure comes with pre-generated characters, so if your friends don't want to make their own characters, they can just go in, use our pre-generated iconic characters that you see in our artwork and on the covers of our books. However, we also have this written so that you can play it with your own character. So this is the first of our digital one-shots where you can make your own character, and in fact, you are encouraged to make your own character, because say you're wanting to play Drift Crashers, you can make characters for this, go through all of Before the Storm, and then it ties in right to the start of the first Drift Crashers adventure volume. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to start, dip your feet in, even smaller than like Junker's Delight. It's a night of gameplay, maybe two if you want to stretch it a bit. Kind of a spooky Event Horizon-esque with some wacky turns going onto a spaceship after you've your ship and this other ship have been caught up in a bow wave of the approaching drift crash. So yeah, super interesting. I would strongly recommend giving it a shot, trying it out. I had a blast developing it. I can only imagine how good playing it's good.
Heck yeah. And that will bring us right into Drift Crashers itself, which is a 3-volume AP that explores the tale of one crew of unlucky / maybe lucky, actually, Starfinder people who find themselves shunted all across creation and the planes because of the drift crisis. So if you've ever wanted to go on a journey, this is like seriously, like you are going to go to hell almost immediately. We're starting off with The Perfect Storm by Jessica Redekop, super awesome freelancer of ours who is known for their planar shenanigans. So you can only imagine that with Jason Tondro developing this, Jessica writing it, it's going to be a wild ride. You almost, spoilers, but you almost immediately descend into hell, piss off an Arini's devil. Then you find yourself on a wild ride. You go to a parallel universe. You might meet your evil twins. You have brunch with Desna in a later installment. You get to explore a 4-dimensional alien structure. I mean, really kitchen sink, but I mean that in a good way. It's super exciting. I actually wrote the second volume of that, and Ron Lundeen, another former Paizo great, wrote the third, which is going to be this super cool 4-dimensional like dungeon crawl, and he's super great at that. So this AP is wild. It is something else. Like, I know we talk about Starfinder being weird, but I really think that we kind of outdid ourselves here. We also have one of our editors who worked on this with us, Ianara.
Oh yeah, the entire time I was working, I was like, wow, they went there in a good way, But this is
good.
Yeah, this AP is only like what's the level range for it? Gosh, it's not even
It goes
like
up
really
goes up to 7. Yeah, it goes up to
1 to 7. And the places you go to, I was flabbergasted in a good way, and it's very exciting because I remember you were talking about it earlier, like getting people prepared for Drift Crisis, how to implement your game. I'm just thinking, how can you really prepare for what's going to happen in this AP? And my answer is, I don't think you can. You just go for the ride because it's really fun. I would love to be a player or even to run a game like this because it just goes where Starfinder can and should go, but still in a way that sometimes you don't expect it to. And that's the best way I can think of. Is just it just goes there, and it has fun doing it. It's a I'm pretty sure people are gonna love it. It's wonderfully written. Our authors just flew out of the park. I look forward to seeing how people react to it. It's great.
It really is. It's super exciting. I also was skimming chat, and yes, in one of the books there is an opportunity. There are some new like archetypes and other player options. There is a magical girl option, or a magical girl-esque one. We saw that art earlier in Eric's keynote, and I got very excited seeing it. But there is a ton of goodness. There's the adventures, but there's just a whole other level of just cool content that we've put in there for y'all. So please do check that one out. It is also only 3 volumes, so trust me, it provides enough of a story, but you can run it in a lot faster. So your group will probably get through it, and then you'll be level 7, so you can move on. And what sorts of adventures will you have after you've gone to hell and met a god and you're level 7? Who knows? Anyway, so super excited about that one. We also have, after that, coming up is the Drift Hackers. So we're going in a little bit different direction here. Still very much you're some of the stars or heroes of the Drift Crisis. This is another Drift Crisis story. But this time you're doing a little bit of magic tech support.
Yeah, and in fact, to answer the question of where do you go after you've done all of those wacky things in Drift Crashers, well, in Drift Hackers, you are going to basically save a god and fix the Drift Crisis in what is essentially our canonical fix to the event. Drift Hackers is going to have you get involved with this mysterious organization that's responsible for the drift crash called the Architects, and really start digging into some of the secrets of what the Drift Crisis and the Drift Crash were caused by. That's going to start off with this adventure that you were seeing up, or the adventure you're seeing up there, A Light in the Dark by Paizo's own Jessica Catalan, which begins as you're on sort of a journey through the drift, and then Illuvian, the city in the drift, epicenter of Triune, the tripartite deity responsible for the drift and a lot of technology, appears in front of you. And from there, you get caught up in this web of conspiracy, and eventually you travel, meeting with different Triunite factions to sort of rebuild trust between them in the breaking of the Drift Crisis, fighting off these sort of heretics that are trying to do make their own updates to Triune, so to speak. And and that second adventure comes from Quinn Murphy, and then our final adventure, Into the Dataverse by Alex Agunas, brings us literally into a digital realm where your players insert their consciousnesses into a realm that represents all information about the galaxy collected by Triune. And through this dataverse, you got kind of go through it and have to fix the Drift Crisis and go into the code and act as a bit of code tech support. And this first adventure, though, Light in the Dark for Drift Hackers, is out of this world. We don't have the picture for it yet, but you might see, I believe you might see it later in some of our panels. But one of the earliest fights is your starship battling against a gigantic starship-sized Earth elemental that's in the shape of a bear. That's how they open this thing, everybody. It goes even more off the rails from there, and I really think people will enjoy it. It's got a lot of like, whereas I think Drift Crashers kind of throws the kitchen sink, this really drills into that. What caused the Drift Crisis? What caused the Drift Crash? And getting people involved with the sort of deity level, fantastical magic elements of things, and bringing in some of our outsiders like the Spectra that are native to the Drift, and just a lot of a very interesting, different approach than what we've seen in sort of the kitchen sink approach of Drift Crashers. And that's that'll be coming out after the Drift Crashers AP. It'll immediately follow it, and in fact, they can be run right into one another.
Yeah.
I think these two adventures do a great job. Oh, yeah.
I was actually going to say any other words.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Drift Crashers is, the drift crash is the catalyst for what happens in there. But if you wanted to play kind of independent of the drift crash, you could do in Drift Crisis. You could do that with Drift Crashers, no problem. You could even rewrite what that initial event is that throws everything out of whack is. And then Drift Hackers is if you really want to get into the Drift Crisis and really become the heroes of that story, then that's the perfect adventure for you to do so. And just like with the Drift Crisis hardcover, we provide a lot of different adventure ideas and tools for you to engage with it in any way you want and tell whatever stories you want, whether it's really like centering yourself in the whole event or just dealing with some completely unexpected, like Ianara was saying, like, how did you get from A to B? Like, you really went there. Like, if there's a place you want to go, you can kind of use the Drift Crisis as an excuse to go there because all sorts of weird things happened as a result. So I think, I guess I'm tooting our own horn, but really this was our AT side, our adventure path side, doing all this amazing work with sort of this Drift Crisis idea. So props to them for that, for sure.
I just look forward to the people in the Starfinder universe using the Drift Crisis as like an excuse for everything. Oh darn, Carl was late to work. Darn Drift Crisis. Or, oh no, it's like I forgot my appointment. It's the Drift Crisis. What you gonna do? That sort of thing. It's great because it affects everyone. So I think it also the adventures do well to show how people are reacting to it because the people in the world, they have to deal with the consequences and the aftermath. It's very serious, but also in some cases kind of really puts the spotlight on people being able to do some heroics or some less than good things. So there's that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to me, Drift Crisis is really cool because we have, if you look in the back of our core rulebook, like our setting, you've got like this timeline that talks about things like, the Swarm War and when the Pact was signed and the Stardust Plague, and we get these things mentioned throughout lore and hit like the history, but unless we don't have adventures that take us through that, but this is an ongoing historical event in Starfinder. Like this is happening right now, and you can actually, your characters can experience it, and it could end up being a thing. Like if you're anything, I don't know what your home games are like, but I know one of mine, a lot of our parties are all sort of interconnected, like vaguely like within the same sort of setting. So you could definitely have those connections. You could create those in the Drift Crisis, and it's just something that I feel like the community will have actually lived through in playing their characters. So it's really cool. I am super excited that we're getting to do things like this with Starfinder. But if you're not feeling the Drift Crisis or you just need a break from it, we do have plenty of other stuff. We also, as I believe Eric mentioned in his keynote, we have the Dead Suns coming back out. We are re-releasing one of our classics. Look at this fancy art. We've got basically, a lot of you are probably familiar with it, but this is very much a classic adventure starting at level 1. It's actually one of the first I ever played in Starfinder, other than Starfinder Society. And you start out working with the Starfinder Society on Absalom Station, and you're basically sent out to investigate this mysterious, like, derelict ship, and I'm sure nothing bad will happen there. Nothing bad happens, don't worry. Nothing.
Nothing
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
It's my favorite kind of adventure that starts with like a plausible sort of, a mystery that's not like necessarily world shaking. I won't say exactly what it is, right? But it's like, okay, that's interesting. Like, what's going on with that? And then it turns out, oh, that's just the thread that unravels everything until suddenly the galaxy is at stake. And you're like, whoop, how did this happen over just a few books? But it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it's a very like it's a pretty comprehensive book. I think it's just over 300 pages. I think it's like 306 pages. It compiles all of the first 6 adventures, some of which you can't get in print anymore. So if you were ever interested in Dead Suns, you wouldn't be able to play it until this compilation. It does like compile a whole bunch of the content that was in the book into the back. So alien archives and ships and different appendices all get dropped in there, like, you know, all the traditional articles continuing the campaigns and Cult of the Devourer. They all just kind of get a little bit of a look. The Corpse Fleet, I wrote that one. I remember that one. You know, you get to see it all in there. So it is the full kit and caboodle, so to speak, all put together. And yeah, it's this is kind of starting off this transition that we're making now on the Starfinder side into hardback APs, and sort of taking a bit of a step away from our traditional softback releases and releasing more compilation adventures. And by compilation, I should say that doesn't mean these are all going to be old compilations. We're actually doing some entirely new stuff in the future as well, that is, you know, just coming out in a hardback format. So adventures you've never played before coming out as hardbacks, and that's going to start with us compiling some old ones like Dead Suns that you're seeing here, and then Scoured Stars that was mentioned earlier.
And one thing about Dead Suns in particular, it was the first adventure path for Starfinder, and as such, it was designed and kind of along with the system and meant to be an introduction to Starfinder. So it explores a lot of the major worlds of the Pact Worlds and factions, and kind of steps you through on purpose various aspects of Starfinder, while still, you know, having the focus be on the story and the adventure, but also saying this is because at the time it was the only way to experience a Starfinder adventure that was written, because it was the only one. So while other adventure paths have more specific storylines or genres or whatever, this is very much like a check out Starfinder. This is what we're all about. So it's a great one to be compiled, and yeah.
And there are some changes, but I will say it is the majority of it is the same. Similar to what was said for Scoured Stars, the goal is to keep the bones of this thing the same, but certainly looking through old comments. I know Jason Keeley, this was one of his big projects, was going through and finding, you know, encounters or things that needed updating or errors that we'd spotted from print. That's been the focus of these. So if you haven't played it before, don't worry, you're not getting some completely new experience. But if you have played it and maybe are wanting to pick up a new version, it's going to have some fixes and tweaks.
Absolutely. So the next thing I want to talk about, I realize we are running out of time. We may not have time for a lot of questions today, but we are going to come back tomorrow. Before we go, I do have a few more things to cover. I feel like one of the best kept secrets of our campaign sometimes is that, so we have this thing called Starfinder Society, which you all probably have heard of. It's organized play, and you can go learn how to play Starfinder with a brand new group for the first time, meet new friends, but you can also just buy these adventures and run them yourself, like for your friends, without being in the organized play campaign. So I just want to talk about these because these things are like less than $10, and you get a scenario that's going to run in it's like 26 page, I believe, scenario. This thing will run about 4 to 5 hours. It's like a little mission. There'll be like multiple encounters. Sometimes it's combat. Sometimes there'll be some social or some skill checks and skill challenge sort of things. They are really fun, episodic in a lot of cases, adventures. In some cases, they have a plot that connects. Like there'll be like little series or a year with like an overarching meta plot. But you can really just play these things as one shots, or put them in as like filler episodes in your campaign, or bridging episodes, or you can just go to Starfinder Society. You can go to your local game store or get online and play with people if you're looking for a group. So these are really cool. They just showed a few of our upcoming releases, or our recent and upcoming releases. There's always new adventures to check out. There are literally dozens of them available. And they cover like all sorts of genres, like all sorts of adventure types. We know,
And the
I
panel
know
right after this is talking about it. Oh yeah, the panel right after this is organized play. So
That's right. So just stick around and you can hear more from Jessica Catalan, who is another of our awesome Starfinder crew. And she is in charge of SFS. So she can tell you a lot more, as can her colleagues. And last but not... Oh, yes, Joe? Sorry.
Yeah, there'll be some Drift Crisis offerings in there, but a lot of non-Drift Crisis stuff too. So again, like if you want to engage, you'll have stuff to engage with, and if you'd rather explore your own other adventures, then you have that option too.
Absolutely. And yes, there are a lot of really good intro level scenarios, great intro to the setting, but also to just like playing the game. And they label, like Starfinder Society will label the level ranges that you have to be, like your players have to be to play. So you can very easily see, oh, this is for 1st through 4th level characters. Cool. Like these are my newbies, or this one is, for these like 7th level. Okay, I can run this in the middle of my campaign for like a little break. And last but not least, we have even more content on starfinderinfinite.com. We have tons of stuff from our community creators. Some occasionally, some of our own Paizo staffers will contribute to Pathfinder and Starfinder Infinite. There is just so much out there to check out. And
Go check it out.
if you're on that Shavaska grind set, you can even publish your own content through Infinite. But
it's true.
Yeah. Totally true. All right. With that, I think that about wraps up everything I had, unless my fellow panelists, do you have anything else you want to add at the end to that presentation? What about bounties?
I see Shannon in the chat mentions bounties. There we go. Bounties are another thing, though. I'm sure they'll be talking about in the next panel. Those are again small introductory organized play content that can get you into the campaign. So check the next panel. I'm sure they're going to dig a bit more into some of the specific organized play offerings as well.
Absolutely.
I guess the one thing I would add is, since we talked a lot about adventures and all the stuff that kind of holds your hand and guides you through Starfinder. Some people may be very familiar with RPGs and ready to kind of take the just core system and run with it. And we do have products that help you do that too, that help you sort of generate worlds or species or all kinds of other things that you can just take piecemeal as you like and use them in your own setting. So I just wanted to just throw that bone out there for anyone who's watching and wants to play Starfinder, but kind of more on their own terms than these adventures we've been talking about. So lots of ways to play Starfinder, for sure.
We also have my personal favorite, Tech Revolution here. You get this bad boy. You can make you a mech, and you can punch a dragon with it. I mean, well, you'll get to do that soon enough in another adventure. But yeah, I love this book, so this one's great. Get this too. And with that, we've got a couple minutes. So any questions from chat before we head out? Not everybody all at once.
What do we hear about mechs versus dragons? Oh no, Jen won't stop talking now. Oh no.
Oh no, it's all over. Might as well end it now. No, there is an adventure coming out in next November called To Defy the Dragon. It is going to be a higher level 7, starting at level 7, I believe, adventure. I should know this, but my brain is very, very wired and tired at once. But you will get to take mechs and use it to fight an evil dragon who is lording it over a planet. Whether you are from that planet or you are adventurers who have come across the planet and decide to help out the residents, you can kind of choose your background there. But it's going to be really cool, I think. A little biased, but I think it's going to be really cool.
It's really fun. I like anime, and I like mechs in anime, and I thought that was, like, great. Well done. Very well done.
Yay. Let's see. I think I see some more questions. I see, is the switch to hardcover APs, is that going to increase the price for the original softback? Thirsty, do you have... I assume the pricing will change with having a bigger, like it's going to have more page count.
It's a lot of these are going to have more page count. In some cases, like in some cases, it will actually end up being cheaper than individual books for you. For example, like if it's a 3-volume AP and we're selling, we're selling a hardback book, suffice to say, it's probably not going to be the same cost as like 3 individual volumes. So looks like you'll be getting a little bit of a discount on those, but don't quote me on that because we haven't set the pricing for any of these in the future. They're also gonna come on a product by product basis too. So you're sort of seeing with Dead Sons, that's like a 300 and something page. Scoured Stars is 256. Our other ones might be smaller, might be bigger. We're gonna be playing around with it. One of the things with this switch to hardbacks is that it allows us to do some really new and unique things. We can't quite talk about it too much, but we've already been talking about like our next several hardback adventure paths and some really cool things that it allows us to do and explore that we haven't been able to do in adventure paths yet. So keep on the lookout. But I would say the pricing will be comparable, if not maybe a little bit better on your wallet if you want to buy them all at once.
Yes, thank you. I see there's some more questions, but I think we're actually about on the mark of when we need to wrap it up so the next panel can have time to get set up. But I will say, please come back. Is it 2 tomorrow? I believe we're back. Some of us will be back. There's going to be some other guests as well. We will be talking, digging a little deeper into Starfinder, and we will be here to answer your questions. Hopefully, we'll have time for a bit longer of a QA to the panel then. So please come back and ask your questions then. Other than that, please have fun at online or in-person Gen Con if you're there, and we hope to see you out there in the stars. Thank you, everyone.
Boy, see you at tomorrow's
Thank you,
panel. I'll
everyone.
be there.